Hello, everyone. Welcome back to episode
You should
one.
know it. You're keeping score, mate. I'm not keeping score.
Welcome to GNS. Okay, get us started, Jack. What do you want to talk about today?
All right. Well, I'll give a prep update, and then we've got some Q&A questions. Prep update. I fractured my toe.
Oh, fuck! No, you haven't played on it.
No, I was in the leisure centre that we used to train out of. Stacked it over a bench because it had this weird like jutty out thing. Snapped my toe to the side. Finally got it checked out today. It was like a week ago, and it's fractured. So we've had to pull steps. Cardio is a bit hit and miss. Training calves and tibs has not occurred. And then I went in there, and the doctor was like, "Okay, you need to wrap it." So I've got like some stuff to like basically tie my toe together with the other one, my pinky toe, which is great. But yeah, she was like, could take up to 6 weeks, and I was like, that's gonna be an interesting one. So we'll see how this pans out, because if it takes 6 weeks, I'm only 13 weeks out, so if it's 6 weeks of not being able to like get any steps, my steps are sitting at like 2k, and it's taking ages to heal because I'm still walking on it because I have to. I can't just not walk anywhere. So we'll see how it goes. I don't think it's prep ruined, but it's going to be a horrible prep, because food's going to have to get like absolutely mished to get me down there. But yeah, that's the big update of the week, I guess.
I mean, you say that, but prep's never going to be smooth sailing.
Nah.
Like, and you know, it is fucking annoying, but it's not like a, oh no, I'm injured, I have to pull out. It's like okay, we can work around this sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not a definite like you cannot like compete. Like with what happened with Matty, where like he had like some family stuff come up, like he fully had to. There was no if buts or maybes or working around it. In your case, you can still compete. It's just fucking long.
Yeah.
But nah, I'm sure you'll fucking pull through. You always do, bro. Are you gonna send any toe pics to me?
Totally. But like it's healing slowly, but like it was bad. It was like, so if you think of it as like my hand, right, the whole pinky was bright red and swollen. It was the size of my thumb, and then all across here was swollen, like all across here. But yeah, it's just frustrating because like I'll literally like walk to the kitchen, walk around the gym, and like that hurts it. So it's like it's difficult to let it fully heal. Yeah, it is what it is. It's just gonna be.
Why are we both so fucking clumsy? I feel like this is just injury academy, man. Like,
mate, it's so jarring. I wish my show was in October, because I would 100% push it back for this.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, it's gonna be horrible. But we'll see how it heals. We'll see how it heals. I'll get it splintered up after the call, and we'll take it from there. But
I'll give your calves a good old rub. Maybe we'll get some fucking fun in there.
Is Joe? Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot why I stacked it. Yeah, so basically, right. So I had I woke up in the middle of the night and my calf cramped. I was like, oh, that's long. It was. I was screaming in agony because it hurt. My calf cramped yesterday as well, which was great. I literally like woke up screaming, like fully belting it. It was not good. And then, yeah. So the next day I was trained at the leisure centre. No, sorry. Oh my god, prep brain. Calf cramped. Got it acupunctured. Day after acupuncture, I'm going to train. I'm getting ready to do my bent over rows. I'm stepping over the bench. I didn't realize there's this little jut. Calf cramped. Went into spasm because he got acupunctured the day beforehand. Went into spasm, so I stacked it, and that's how I did the toe. So I messaged Tim at the time, being like, "Oh mate, I've cramped my calf. I'm not gonna be able to get steps in. I'll pick them back up. Just give me a day or two." Then messaged him being like, "Hey mate, got acupuncture, calf's all good. Made up for the steps, we're golden." Then message him being like, "Mate, I've just absolutely wrecked my toe. I've almost pulled it off my foot." And then messaged him today to be like, "Yo, this might be 6 weeks." And he was like, "All right, well, we'll take it week by week." I mean, the doctor's fairly certain it's not going to take 6 weeks. But yeah, I just don't want to Yeah, we'll see. My only concern is just my food is already ridiculously low, and I'm like, I don't know how much lower it can go and how much more fat loss I can get through just food. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know like how productive the prep will be, but it remains to be seen. We'll see. So yeah.
Oh fucking hell. In my case, I'm in a bit of like a fucking psychological dump at the moment because my hips got so bad to the point where it's actually affected my shoulders. Not pain wise, but like I've noticed in my pressing, one of my shoulders is hitchhiking, which basically means my supraspinatus, so my rotator cuff on the upper portion is being overworked. So I'm pressing, one arm is almost like this.
Yeah.
Which means I've got some sort of subscap weakness, potentially some sort of predisposition by having a functional scoliosis because my hips are so fucked. And I made the mistake of training's fine, so I'm going to keep training. But the problem is, if you've already got dysfunction and if you've got asymmetry / abnormalities and you train, the fact that I'm not in pain might not necessarily indicate that there's dysfunction. And the fact is, if I'm training ridiculously heavy, like I am, leg pressing 450 kilos, it's going to make that dysfunction worse. Because when you're strong, you revert to the position that your body's naturally strongest in.
Yep.
Obviously, because there's dysfunction in my hips, it's going to revert to that position that is strongest. So then basically my symptoms flared up today, and I was like, no, like fucking struggling to get out of bed, so fucking sore. So I kind of just bit the bullet, and I was like, cool, I need to get like some rehab specialists on this. And like I've got a call with them in like 2 hours. I'm literally just gonna cry. I'm literally just gonna tell them exactly what's wrong. Like, look, my hips are so fucked, my shoulders are fucked. Like that's how much this dysfunction has spread throughout my body. So legs is probably gonna get pulled for, I'm assuming, about 12 weeks. That's not 12 weeks of not training legs. I'll be doing rehab up until about 8 to 10 weeks. Then we'll reintroduce strength training. But the problem is, in order to take 2 steps forward, you have to take 1 step back.
Yep.
And that's the mistake I made, because as soon I was doing my rehab, I wasn't really leg training. I got out of pain, and then I jumped the gun. I was like, okay, back to leg training. I'm just not going to hinge. But hinging was just the problematic or the pain sort of movement. That doesn't mean fucking leg pressing, hack squatting, even calf raises, because I've got such a big shift in my hips. I can feel such a deep stretch in my left leg and no stretch in my right. And I was training, I was like, this is the worst it's ever been. Oh fuck yeah. So hopefully this guy will get it sorted. He is he's also an osteo, but he's also a guy who did the movement mechanics course. So for those of you who don't know, I want to specialize with more online clients, and I want to transition to be like an online osteo basically. But with the inherent nature of osteopathy, it is very hands-on. So I found it a little bit difficult maneuvering, assessment and treatment of, not necessarily treatment, but maybe assessment of patients online. So I looked into doing courses, and this guy who offers it, Ash Grossman, it's one of the best courses in the country, albeit ridiculously expensive. But I'm kind of excited to see what it's like from a patient perspective for someone another person who's done the course.
Yeah.
Because that will give me an insight then of how, it feels to be a patient, but also what the practitioner does in terms of assessment. Because like, it's not that I don't know what I'm doing, it's more so filling in the gaps. So like in my case specifically, because it's myself, I tend to jump the gun. I tend to do too much, too little. I can't really dose correctly because it's myself. But like if I feel like someone else has a look into it, someone who I trust and is also a specialist, they can tell me, Camille, shut the fuck up, don't worry, just do X, Y, and Z. Kind of similar thing like with coaching. Like even if you're a fantastic coach, you don't really want to coach yourself, because like calling the shots, sometimes you can be a bit biased.
Yep.
So that's kind of where my head's at right now. Training, nutrition, everything's fucking flying. Like I'm growing like an animal right now. I've put on like 3-4 kilos in a week, which obviously is going to be a lot of timber, but like visually I look so much bigger.
Yeah.
But it's just like this dysfunction that's just like getting to me psychologically. So like I need to like just put a foot down and just fucking sort it out and get a grip.
Yeah, I think you know, like you said, the visuals are like shifting. Like, yeah, there's some like fat gain, but it's like significantly, like your physique is coming along really, really nicely, which is calm. Again, things like this happen. All you can do is really address it as immediately as possible. There's not much more that you can do, and just kind of like take it as it comes. But there's always going to be setbacks, as hopefully anyone can learn from this week's episode in particular. Anyway, we've got a couple questions from the on Insta. Yeah, the first one is really, really interesting, which is, should bodybuilding be an Olympic sport? So within the Olympics.
It's already technically an Olympic sport by having the Olympiad. It's just not at the Olympics.
Nah, it has to be in the Olympics to be an Olympic sport.
Nah, I think Olympic sports are performance-based. Bodybuilding is not performance-based.
Yeah, agreed.
You can't, like, what people view as aesthetic by the average population might not necessarily be aesthetic or, you know, good in terms of the bodybuilding population. So, you know, say for an average individual, right, if they see like these huge motherfuckers like Nick Walker on stage, they might not be like, oh no, like he's the best or he's the best, you know what I mean? Because they don't know what to look for. That's why bodybuilding is sort of like a niche sport in a sense, because it's a vanity sport. It's based on looks rather than performance. It's like, if someone, say for example, you do a boxing match and it's 1v1, you know, if someone fucking wins on points or knocks the other guy out, it's a clear-cut decision, he's won. Whereas with bodybuilding, we have multiple judges, and even though one person might win a show, they might take to Instagram, and everyone might be like, no, but he looked bad, but he looked bad, but he did this, but he did that. There's a lot more disparity. There isn't like a clear-cut he won and he lost. It's very like visually based, it's vanity based, so it would never work at the Olympics. Like the general pop on, I wouldn't say educated, but they don't know what to look for.
Yeah, I think, like you said, I think the Olympics lends itself to it's more like, I guess, mainstream sports. I don't know, because then like football's not in the Olympics, is it? So like Olympic sports are their own kind of category. It's more like athleticism, etc. It's more performative. I think I could see powerlifting being in it, because obviously like Ollie lifting's in it, but I could see powerlifting being a part of it.
Oh no, weightlifting's an Olympic sport.
Yeah,
that's different.
No, like I can see that working, but no, I think bodybuilding will always be a niche, and I think that's okay. I think it can get more popular as a niche, but I think it just needs to be its own thing, because it is just I think as soon as you start to try and combine it into other things, like try and make it part of the Olympic sport, like Olympic sports, give it like an Olympic committee, have like competing teams from different countries, I think it just gets confusing, and you'd be better off just kind of having it in its own wheelhouse, but that getting more and more popular. We've got best way to manage sports training with muscular fatigue.
Get a coach.
Yeah.
Like there's so many avenues that we could go down to answer this question, but ultimately it comes down to it is fucking person dependent. You know, we have a broad spectrum of performance-based sports. So you could have someone who's a boxer, like a physical fighter. You could have someone that's a footballer. You could have someone that's a swimmer. There's going to be different joints that are going to be affected. There's going to be different work rates. So you could have an amateur all the way up to a professional, and at different amounts of time you're going to have to dedicate throughout the week to that sport. So ultimately, if you are just struggling, just get a coach, because they're going to tailor it towards you. You know, you could have two athletes that do the exact same sport, but one commits, you know, 10, 15 hours a week to training that specific sport, and the other one commits 5. So like how you structure the program is going to be different for those two individuals. So ultimately, it just comes down to, I think, getting a coach, to be honest.
Agreed, definitely. I'd say the best like generalistic advice I can give is like write out your Monday to Sunday, write out the training that you're doing, and almost like it's a training split. So if you're playing football, then there's a lot of knee extension, and there's a lot of like dorsiflexion as well. So maybe some plantar flexion as well from running, but whatever. But you could say like calves, tips, quads are occurring those days. Say, okay, if that's happening, how much work do I need to get in between? What's the furthest points away from that? Literally just write any training that you're doing or any sport that you're doing as if it were a training split. Aim to train in the days between those muscles that are already going to be part of your sport. Keep the volume lower and then ramp them up. I think
and also the agonist of the muscle groups, make sure to ramp up the volume, because what I've seen personally with footballers is like either chronically tight or weak hamstrings. Like always, literally, I've worked with so many, like over a dozen footballers, and every single one had fucked hamstrings. So like think about like agonists, antagonists. Think about like you're gonna have strong, well-developed quads. How are your hamstrings looking? Because you're not actually actively training your hamstrings the same way you could be training your quads when you're playing football.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. One of the first things that I push in terms of volume for a footballer is going to be hamstrings rather than quads. Like your quads are getting enough stimulus, it's just get better at it. So I'd rather focus on getting stimulus across those muscles that are going to be good for injury prevention. But yeah, I think the main thing is if you know that you're training, if you do football training on a Wednesday and a Sunday, what are you doing? Write it out, work out in between. Any cardio needs that you need, again, chuck that in between. Just treat everything you're doing as if it's a split and write it down as either cardio or resistance training. Easy peasy. This is an interesting one. How do you come up with content ideas?
Well, I would say most recently it's like if I was me 3 years ago, that sounds funny, like me 3 years ago, what kind of questions I'll be asking? Because I mean, ultimately it comes down to ask yourself the question, who are you trying to work with the most? Right? Are you trying to work with athletes? Are you trying to work with bodybuilders? Are you trying to work with competitors? Are you trying to work with coaches? Are you trying to work with lifestyle clients? And then based on that, try and get in the brain of the client that you're trying to work with and try and think of questions that they would ask. So like if you're asking like a seasoned competitor, you know, how would you carb load during a prep? You know, what does prep look like? How do you manage post-prep, you know, mindset, things like that. Whereas if it's just like, you know, a lifestyle client, they might ask more general questions like, oh, what's the best split? How do I put on muscle effectively? How do I make sure my bulks, you know, don't fail when I just look the same, blah, blah. So it's like even though it might be the same kind of question or the same topic, you'd word it slightly differently in order to tailor towards that client.
Yeah, 100%. Like, know who you're talking to, answer the questions that they're most likely to ask, and listen to the struggles of the people that you talk to. Like if you're talking to bodybuilders and they're constantly kind of talking about how do I do this, how do I do that, what's this, what's that, then talk about those things. And if you're talking to everyday gym pop, get on the gym floor, talk to them, see what goals they have, see what issues they have. It's just really knowing your audience is what it comes down to. If you know your audience, you're going to have ideas of what they want to hear and what's going to benefit them. And even when you're showcasing your own progress, you can kind of gear it towards like what they want. You put a question, a piss take question about scapular dyskinesis, and then you put a piss take question about pecs. But to be fair, we could talk about pec growth because I've seen a few people talking about like struggling to grow their pecs. So let's say someone is struggling to grow their pecs. What advice would you give?
Oh, okay. I think when I first started out, I'm pretty sure, or no, I'm not pretty sure, my pecs are like severely underdeveloped. I had like zero chest to the point where it almost caved in. And now I've developed my pecs to a respectable amount. And I think the one thing that definitely has helped me is focusing on range of motion, one, but just bringing a different type of intensity. Like with chest training, like being explosive, I found has really helped me generate force. You got to understand your shoulder is a very mobile joint by nature compared to your hips. It doesn't have the same leverage to generate force as your hips do. With your hips, you can do a lot more time under tension, you can pause in the stretch, etc., which you can still do with your shoulders, but I would err more towards being like really explosive with your pecs because that's going to be ensuring that you're generating enough force. Like at the end of the day, treat it like any other muscle group. Just train with good enough form and just get really fucking strong at it, you know? And like play around with volume. You know, some people can handle a lot more volume, some people can handle a lot less. Me, generally speaking, I don't need that much volume to actually grow my chest. But again, it is very case dependent. What might work for me might not work for you. So I would play around volume, intensity, training more frequently. And you could, I hate using the word, but like pre-exhausting as well. Like if you struggle with feeling your chest, on pressing movements specifically, you could do something like a fly, you know, do a giant set, get a shit ton of blood into that pec, and then go into your presses. And then that way you're kind of ensuring that you're more biased in the pec rather than, you know, if you're more of an arm dominant presser, which I find a lot of people doing. One last thing before I let you continue, Jack. So going into that topic of like, are you very chest dominant or arm dominant presser?
Yeah.
It does kind of come down to the direction of your arm, but also I would say like playing around with different machines. So like that I found personally, things that more abducted and where I almost flex my bicep. So doing this movement, I've had presses like flat presses like this almost, and that is very tricep dominant for me because I'm almost flexing my biceps. I'm getting a really deep stretch. But like, if you think about tucking your elbow down a little bit and like you're bringing it down to here, you're not flexing your bicep as much, and you're getting a much deeper stretch in your chest because you got to remember the chest stretches by abduction, right? So you're almost trying to bring it out this way rather than like that.
Yeah. I think the first thing I'd say is like knowing how to set it up correctly, particularly for your structure. I think particularly like people that are like arm delt versus chest dominant and you're trying to adjust that, a lot of it is knowing, yes, generally doing these things is going to make something a bit more pec dominant. Yes, generally sticking within the bottom range, really pushing your chest up, really pulling your scaps back. Yeah, generally for most people is probably going to be a little bit more pec. But just knowing for your structure, what kind of presses fit you, why they fit you, why your structure requires certain things or doesn't require certain things. So people go, oh, flies or press. I'll be like, show me your shoulders, show me your structure, show me your chest, show me your delts. What do they look like? How do they move? Show me how you perform a fly. Show me how you perform a press. Should it be converging or non-converging? Should it be parallel? Again, show me your structure. Like, show me how you press. Let's have a look at it. Let's look at your physique. Knowing how your body inherently likes to move and therefore what kind of musculature it's going to bias or how your joints like to sit is one of the main things I would say. Like you knew there, Camille, you're like, okay, I know for my structure, if I press in a certain fashion, it's going to give me a bit more this or a bit more that, or I know that I tend to bias this naturally or tend to bias away from that. So know your structure, know your setup, range of motion. If you have any mobility concerns, address them. A lot of people have terrible scap mobility. And often you'll see that depending on what action of their scap they suck at moving into or moving out of or controlling, typically you'll see some kind of gap in their physique, the same way that like with lower body mobility, if you see people with like particular issues getting into certain hip stances or getting into certain foot positions or ankle ranges of motion, you'll see that that is reflected in their physique as well. So know your structure, know your physique, know your range of motion, work on that, set things up correctly, and then it's just getting stronger while maintaining the aforementioned setup. Other thing I'd say, particularly for people trying to grow an upper chest, is stop pressing with such a ridiculous arch to the point where you're taking your costal fibers and lining them up directly with the path of the bar or directly with pull to your shoulder. Because the amount of times I'll see someone set up like an incline Smith press and then they arch so much that they're like clavicular fibers are almost out the way and they're more like sternal or costal fibers are starting to kind of line up nicely with moving that bar. It's like, yeah, now you're starting to turn it into more of a like flat press, which I think a lot of people do by mistake. A lot of it's structure. If you're new to the gym, it's control it and get stronger and go deep. If you've been training for a while, it's almost certainly execution and knowing structure.
Very deep, yeah.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, bro. I thought I had more actually, but that seems to be that. Let me double check my Instagram notifications. Have you had any good questions from clients this week while I scroll? Damn, Instagram does not go as far back as it used to. That's so lame.
I've got a little bit to talk about in terms of like,
go on then.
So more like osteo based now.
Yep.
Well, a lot, and my fascial release gets a lot of shit.
Yep.
So the foam rolling, you know, using a tennis ball, etc.,
Yep.
etc., etc. And like the premise why we use my fascial release is to reduce symptoms. Now, I'm not saying my fascial release is the be all end all. I'm not saying it's going to cure your problem. I'm not saying it's going to address the root cause of the issue. However, when we have individuals who are too symptomatic to do the things that will address the root cause of the problem, that's where I think my fascial release slots in really nicely. Now, what do you think happens? A question to you, Jack. If a muscle is strained, a muscle is either really tight or it's elongated, so it's painful, and we stretch it, what do you think happens?
What's the nature of the stretch?
So it's a static stretch.
Just a static stretch. Probably
so
not.
say for example, I strain my right trap, right, and I'm doing this, like trying to stretch out. I'm like,
yeah, you're not going to get much out of it. You might get some temporary relief, but you're not going to get any like long-term adaptation to that.
Yeah, exactly. And if it's too symptomatic, it's actually going to be one, too painful, and two, it's going to have a recall effect because your body's like, this area is fucked, and you're like trying to fucking yank on it, but to stretch it out. And the thing is, like, it could be referred tightness from somewhere else. You could have like a tight sensation in your traps, but that could be referred all the way down from your lower back. So you doing this isn't going to do fuck all, right? This is where my fascial release comes in, because we want to release the muscle before we stretch the muscle. We want our nervous system. It's like, say for example, I shove a tennis ball in my trap. It's a way of signaling to a body. You're almost pointing it out, and you're being like, this area needs blood now. Like, because that's the reason a muscle gets tight. It's ischemic. It means there's lack of blood flow, so there's congestion in the tissues, so they go like this. Yeah, all that myofascial release does is just bring a shit ton of blood to the area. So it makes sense. Do a bit of myofascial release and then stretch. And that's what I find a lot of benefit with my clients and also myself. Like, I wake up in the morning, I'm too symptomatic. I'm literally having to like pick my leg up out of bed. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to get into a pigeon stretch or do 90-90s, bro. I can barely move my leg. I lie down, I get a fucking tennis ball, I shove it in my glute for 10 minutes. And it's like, I don't have any pain anymore. So it's like, okay, now I can stretch. So don't skip out on things just because they don't get you better long term doesn't mean there's no benefit. I think it comes down to like kind of what we said, like with the coaching, like, you know, don't skip on the basics. Don't just apply advanced principles all the time, because the basics still have a place. It's the exact same concept. Like, I can you know, apply very advanced rehab protocols, but that doesn't mean I'm going to skip out on the basics, like, you know, applying heat, using myofascial release, stuff like this, even breathing techniques that activate that parasympathetic.
I think the biggest tool that people underestimate is expansive range of motion training and loading it up and being able to get a lot out of it. Like, I mean, the classic one that I like to go for is like, a lot of people struggle with hip flexors. It's like that's the classic fun fact that everyone getting into physio and osteo says, oh, do you sit down a lot? Yeah, you probably do, because it's the 21st century. You've got tight hip flexors. Wow, you're so knowledgeable, bro. But things like Bulgarian split squats, particularly off of like a deficit, like if you're able to hold those, get into deep range of motion, pause for a while, do it pain-free, like you're going to get big quads, decent adductors, decent glutes, depending on how you set it up, obviously. And you might find that over time that hip flexor tightness starts to ease. And like there's a lot of preventative programming that you can put in place for people if you're able to get to that point. But I think, you know, like you said, people underestimate the importance of like, get myofascial tissue release as well as train that range of motion. You know, like if you're noticing that, like, okay, side to side your traps get really tight, or you struggle with like depressing your scaps or shrugging your scaps, what's the word I'm looking for there, elevating your scaps, there we go. Like, maybe you should try training that, even to a small degree. You know, the amount of times we've talked about knee issues and people struggling with abduction, maybe train that a little bit, get better at it. Don't just do it while you're rehabbing an issue. Keep it in, progress it, get better at it, and guess what, you'll run into less issues, you know.
Yeah, I was having a discussion with an osteo actually about this the other day, and it's like, myofascial release, or like your muscles getting tight in general for the average population, especially for those who don't go to the gym, isn't really a problem, because usually muscles get tight because of your nervous system. Your nervous system detects dysfunction somewhere, and the muscles around it get tight in order to guard it. However, for individuals who train, your muscles will get tight, not because of your nervous system, but because of the fact you're just training them. You're contracting and you're elongating the muscle under load. So inevitably, at some point, you're going to build tension. Now, if you have never released your upper fibers of your trap, or your left scap, or your pec minor in your 5, 6, 10, 15 years of training, there's inevitably going to be some sort of tension carrying that. Not from your nervous system guarding, but simply because you've been training that fucking muscle twice a week for half a decade, 2 decades, whatever. So like, for sports related people specifically, there is a massive benefit to continuing to do myofascial release, not just in the rehab period, but actually throughout your bodybuilding career. And you might actually notice that, you might do some myofascial release, even if it is like 10, 15 minutes, 2-3 times a week. You're getting more range of motion. You feel safer. Muscles are actually, we can feel your muscles contracted now when you're training, because you release those trigger points and everything's functioning as it's supposed to function. Like, imagine the cascade of events. If like you get a really bad trigger point, how that's going to affect the entire mechanics of your body. I mean, I'm a prime example. My hips are so fucked, it's affecting my shoulders. Like, how has that happened? It's because there's a shift in the shoulders, then there's some compensation in my lower back, which means one QL is tighter than the other, which means that's pulling on my lat, so that's bringing that shoulder down. And my subscap gets really tight. That means this shoulder's fucking elevated like this. So suddenly I'm pressing like this, all because of my hips being wonky when I'm sat. Like, and this is because I didn't do my myofascial release and I didn't do my stretches. So if there's one thing you can take away from this podcast, if you are, somewhat serious about your training, and you are, especially if you're gaining and you're progressing and you're upping weight every single week, please stay on top of your mobility, and please stay on top of recovery, because you will just run yourself into the mud like I have now. And it is not fun. I hate it. Like,
yeah, 100%. Just getting like a little MOT. If you're really into progressing your physique and you're very serious about it, get an MOT. I get one done every 4 weeks. You don't need to go that crazy into it. I'm quite injury prone. But yeah, it's good for me in particular, just to kind of like, I'll go in, I'll see Matt, the osteo. Great osteo, not as good as Camille, I have to say that though.
I won't get upset. It's all right.
I go to Matt because I've been to him for a while, and he's on my doorstep currently. But I'll just get like a little check over, just kind of previous issues, like my calves ping quite a lot, forearms tend to go quite a lot, shoulders have been a good spot. Hips, because I was born without them, can be a little bit funny. Knees, like knee tendons, just get those checked up, see if there's any inflammation building that I've not quite clocked, like just a few little things. And then there's just a few areas where like particularly calves and forearms, where there's always tightness building in them, and it's good to clear it off. I think people have this perception of like bodybuilders just train and are absolutely fine, but if you look at a lot of high-level bodybuilders, they might get like a massage every single rest day or weekly. Like Kuba, I know Kuba gets it weekly, and then in prep I think is like literally every rest day. And it's like, you look at him and you're like, oh yeah, he's dialed in, training's great, it's so high quality, he's never getting injured. It's like, yeah, absolutely. But also he's got someone who'll come round, give him a full body massage and be like, mate, your scaps are getting twingy, underneath your pec I can feel there's a little bit of something with your front delt tying, etc. Maybe ease off on the biceps. Like, you just can't, with all of the best intention in the world, with serious hypertrophy training, there's going to be things that you don't clock unless you get a thumb or an elbow and jab around in it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, knee. Like for example, whenever I've had massages before, I've always got like my full lower checked out. Glutes were never really that much of an issue with tightness. There's been a couple times though where I've had Matt check him and he's like, actually there is something building in there, and I'm like, oh, that's new, never had that issue before. Okay, cool, good to know. Like, you only need to injure something once for it to be a concern, so you might as well get everything checked out. But yeah, if you're serious about training, even if it's once a year, every 6 months, just go and get like a full body massage with a good osteo or physio, and just get everything sorted and checked out, and just see if there's anything brewing.
Yeah, Jack just loves getting his glutes touched up, but
Well, you don't get him touched, you get an elbow, and it feels horrific.
Yeah, it was fucking horrible. But like,
yeah, it's not nice.
That's like the benefit of having a manual therapist, and like obviously because I'm an osteo, I'm gonna be fucking just fucking glorifying it. But like because we're trained in the art of palpation, we can pick up things before they become a problem.
Yeah.
And that is so fucking beneficial to a bodybuilder in a gaining phase or in a prep, because that could literally dictate the success of that prep or that gaining phase. If you don't pick up a twinge, or like you don't go see a manual therapist, that twinge could then turn into an injury, like it did with me, and I'm out for 6 months. I'm going to be out for another 3 months. That's 9 months of just fucking like. Do you see what I'm trying to say? Like,
yeah.
If like you just need to pick it up early doors, and seeing a manual therapist, they will do that because they have the ability to do that. They're so good at diagnosing with their hands, and it sounds fucked, but it's almost like X-ray vision, but with your hands. Like I've got so good to the point of palpation that I can literally I close my eyes when I look for areas of tightness. I just like imagine they don't have their skin on. I can just see the muscle, and the fascia, and the tendons, and I can just feel like every single fucking fiber. It's really fucking cool, but it is like you said, when you get to a certain level, a certain point of hypertrophy training, of being a bodybuilder, etc., like this is just so valuable. It's so valuable, and people do sleep on it. And like I get, it is really fucking expensive, especially if you're doing it weekly. Like, average like manual therapists are like 40, 50 quid an hour. It's like it is really expensive. But at the same time, like you don't do bodybuilding because it's a cheap sport. Like how much do we spend on fucking PDs, supplements, on food, on fucking like clothing, on equipment, like everything. I worked it out today. I was like, in all together, I spend close to $1,000 a month just to keep me running in the gym.
Easily. But that's the thing, is like, when you're like, I love the analogy of, bodybuilding and your body being like a car. It's like, if you were going to take your car right now, if I said whatever car you drive, go and race it, you'd be like, oh Christ, I'm gonna need a car that's at least 6 figures. I don't need something stupid. I'm gonna need like a fucking McLaren or something. If I'm gonna race it and be serious about this, like I'm not gonna do it around in like a Vauxhall Astra or whatever. And it's the same thing with your physique. It's like if you're trying to be get it to move as quickly as possible, or get it to be competitive, the price tag that's associated with that is going to be pretty ridiculous, and that's fine. Like it is what it is. But yeah, bodybuilding and like looking after your body is expensive. It's more looking after your body than it is getting it to grow, I'd say. Like getting it to grow is just like go to the gym. It's the getting a coach to make sure things run smoothly, supplements, health subs, physio, using equipment so that you can be more selective with the lifts that you use, so that you can be a bit smarter with things. A lot of it is just like maintenance and looking after yourself, really. But it's like the same with like food. It's like, I mean, you can get Mackies and that can fit your macros. You can go into Poundland and probably do like a day's worth of eating for like a £5 max, or maybe a £10, I don't know. Probably that's exaggerating, but my point is, if you don't care about how much money you spend on food, or if you do care about how much money you spend on food, but you don't care about health, you could just live off of like rice the entire day and get something very cheap. But getting your fruit and getting your veg in, that's where things can be a bit more expensive, So
I've got to a stage now, and this is going to sound really cunnish to say, but the reason I'm running into so many problems is because I'm growing so quickly. And like the quicker you force adaptations on your body, because you got to remember, like your body does not want to change. So if you're going through a phase that's going really, really well, chances are you're more prone to developing issues, and that's when you really need to look after yourself even more. If I had developed a third of the muscle I have now in the past 6 months, I doubt I would be running into these issues. But the fact that I'm going up you know, in such significant portions every week, that I'm putting on such significant amounts of weight every single week, and my physique is changing so quickly, that's going to come with repercussions inevitably. So, you know, I for the past like 5.5 years of me being natty, I didn't run into a single issue. One time I strained my hamstring, but I was back to doing RDLs in like 2 weeks. I actually remember that. I think I messaged you. I was like, nah, Jack, I think I ripped my hamstring. Like, yeah, in 5 years, I had one sort of like niggle, which lasted 2 weeks. As soon as I hopped on, it's been fucking problematic, literally since the beginning. And I do just attribute that to the fact that my body is adapting at such a fast rate that you're more prone because you're in a state of change.
100%. The faster your progress is moving in the gym, the more side effects there are in terms of like the implications to your body and your movement mechanics. Like, I was talking to a mate yesterday who's recently got into the gym, was asking me some questions, and I was like, muscle growth comes down to the fact that like your body kind of doesn't really want to do it. Like, you don't just wake up and it's like, yeah, you've built some muscle mass. Like, yeah, in puberty, sure, but there's always stimulus, there's always a reason to do it. You know, you're not gonna, and I mean, there's always exceptions to the rule, sure, yeah, but for like 99% of people, we didn't just go, oh, I'm 15, I've now got huge biceps and abs. It doesn't happen. Like, you go to someone who's carrying a lot of muscle, and you be like, how'd you get the muscle? And they'll be like, well, training pretty decently hard. And it's like, the bigger the person is, probably the harder and longer they've had to train. And it's like, why do you have to train so hard? It's like, well, because that's what I need to get a response from my body. Because it's going to be like, nah, bro, you're fine with this muscle mass. Muscle is inherently expensive calorically. It's tiring to build. It's a stress on your body. It's a burden to build it. Like, your body would much rather be doing NOUT and chilling at homeostasis, keeping you at the same body weight, keeping you at the same body fat percentage, keeping everything consistent. But for it to undertake the process of building muscle, laying down new protein, and actively, like, you know, undergoing that process, you need some kind of demand, some kind of stress to kickstart that process. So you have to give it a reason. And there's implications to that reason of your body kind of, I view the human body almost as being a bit reluctant to do it. It's gonna be like, well, yeah, your delts will grow, but like the fascia around it's gonna get really tight, bro. So you're gonna have to deal with that. You have to be like, right, okay, cheers, you know, or like, yeah, easy peasy, mate. It's a win-win. Yeah. Anyway, bodybuilding is expensive, but it's a ton of fun, and you got to do it for the love of it. And if you why do I keep getting added to these AI group chats? Thanks,
I know. And they're like, do you want a job? Like, do you want to do part-time?
Yeah,
40 quid an hour. I'm like, fuck off. Like,
the fact, do you know anyone else who's getting it, or is it just me and you?
I don't know. I haven't spoken to anyone about it.
I bet
I get it on Telegram. I get it on Instagram. I get it on
WhatsApp and text. Someone's definitely, because we've both got Archer Academy in our names, someone's definitely linked us. We've been nabbed. Someone signed us up to some bollocks. We got headhunted. They're like, bro, coaching's going to fail. Do you want an AI job? Can you imagine that? Like, someone sending shots to you that way. I'm going to sign him up for like this. Yeah. You get a message that's like, Morrison's is recruiting. You're like, damn. All right. I think we've done it. Today's been a good episode. I feel like we've had some good flow of conversation. I'm still thinking of some guests to bring on. I definitely want to do more Q&As. To be fair, I might as well talk about it here, but I've spoken to Pete from Conti. I've organized some gift cards from Conti Sports, and what I'm going to be doing is running Q&As, I think, weekly, and whoever gives the best answer, I'm going to give them a Conti gift card as a thanks, just to basically say thanks for everyone who's asking questions, and also obviously encourage them a little bit more. So yeah, that might be something that we do a bit more frequently. So I'm going to try and get some more Q&As going, because they definitely do well for us. But yeah, mate. Perfect. Anything you want to round off on? Any final words of wisdom from K-Dog?
Yeah. I feel like from what we spoke about today, it feels like we're shitting on bodybuilding, and we're not. We fucking love bodybuilding.
No, it's great. It is amazing.
It is. Yeah, it's our passion. And there's a reason we're shitting on it. It's because we live and breathe it. So we have to deal with the shit parts on a day-to-day basis. But I'm sure me and Jack can agree we wouldn't do anything else. So like, if you're looking to get into bodybuilding, try it out, put on some fucking muscle, and I hope, you know, you'll start feeling a bit better.
A lot of the issues of bodybuilding get removed by having a coach as well. So if you want to work with myself, the links are down below.
So cool.
I'm being serious though, like it really does make it a lot less painless. And ultimately as well, there's a lot of reasons why people don't look like bodybuilders. That, you know, like if me and Camille walk down the street shirtless, we don't look like everyone else. And there's many different reasons for that. And part of it's difficult. Part of it is it's difficult. Part of it is like it's difficult to maintain. It's expensive. Yada yada yada. There's a lot of reasons that go into it, but it's still a path that we're both absolutely sprinting down. Anyway, thank you everyone for listening. If you want to work with myself or Camille, all of the links are down below. If you drop us a follow on Instagram, I'll tag you in the Q&As I start doing, Camille, and yeah, we'll do some weekly giveaways as a thanks to everyone there. I need to do a thank you for the last giveaway that we did. I'll be sorting that with Pete. I'm just getting the gift cards in the works. But I'm thinking like weekly Q&As, and then whoever gives the best one, we give them a thanks. But yeah, we will end things off there. If you want to reach us, you know where to find us. Thanks everyone for listening. Have a good one. See ya.